Anyway, so let us start. Okay, so I'm reading again to you, but remember the main thing is two things. Okay, when there is kindness at the level one, as a human being, the kindness can be of two types, and the kindness at the higher, the divine kindness also can be different. So, what is the kindness at the physical level? It can be a weakness. Okay, it can be a weakness of the nerves. You are not able to withstand the pressure of the suffering of others. This we have discussed, na? So this is the type of self-pity that Arjuna is facing now. My God, how can I kill all my own people? And his body starts trembling with fear. So this is one reaction. But the other reaction of the divine would be on top. You see the suffering, you are yourself not affected by it, and yet there is sympathy and love and compassion. That's a higher one. So there is a distinction between these two things. The lower compassion, if you want to call it, it becomes self-pity. And the higher, which is, if you want to say pity of the divine, that becomes the absolutely calm, quiet, unaffected, looking at the suffering and helping. So there are these two things. This is the distinction being made by the Gita in this paragraph. So let's start reading. Okay? But keep this distinction in mind. In first case, you are affected very badly. And when you are affected very badly, naturally your action which you think is a solution will never be the right one. It will temporarily, it can relieve people, but it's not the solution at all. Remember we discussed the temporary solution, feeding one person for one day, okay? But there is a slightly better solution, like giving fish to a man. His hunger is satisfied for the day, but if you teach him fishing, then he learns something, his suffering will be ended, his hunger will end because he can fish every day. So there are better solutions also, even in the physical world. Huh? So that's the difference. So, but I'm reading the first sentence, which we have already done, but we are going to repeat it. But such is not the compassion which actuates Arjuna in the rejection of his work and his mission. He says, I am not capable of killing and I will not do it. So that's his rejection of his work. It's his work to do that, but he is refusing to do it. And what is his work? To kill the enemies. But he is unable to do it. That is not compassion, but an impotence full of a weak self-pity, the incapacity to bear the suffering of others. It can go so far, I told you, it's the same thing, but it can go so far as, I know of a person, he told me himself, that when he had a dog which had an injury, and he took it to the hospital, when he saw the blood oozing out of that dog, he fainted. So this is exactly the extreme situation of what the Gita is saying. It's a weakness. You are not able to withstand the harsh and cruel, so-called cruel, or something which assaults your senses. It attacks your senses to such an effect that you can't bear it anymore. Okay? So this is what Swami is saying. Or rather the Gita is saying, through Sri Aurobindo. So this is the compassion at our human level is an impotence, a weak self-pity. The pity for others translates as a self-pity. You are not able to withstand it, so you want to get rid of your suffering. This is also what happens very often in euthanasia. We have discussed that. No? When you see your own relatives suffering intensely, you are not able to withstand it and you agree to the problem of euthanasia. You remove the life support systems, okay? The oxygen or the ventilator or whatever you remove, and you let the person die because you want to be relieved of the pain of seeing the other in pain. So this is self-pity. That's why the word self-pity. Okay? It's very clear. A recoil from the mental suffering which his act must entail on himself. He is going to kill his enemies, but the effect on him is disastrous. That's what he said. I see not What shall thrust from me the sorrow that dries up the senses? And of all things, self pity is among the most ignoble and un-Aryan of moods. Its pity for others is also a form of self indulgence. Exactly what we have discussed. It is the physical shrinking of the nerves from the act of slaughter. The egoistic, emotional, there's too much of attention on yourself, that's why the egoistic. Emotional shrinking of the heart from the destruction of the Dhritarashtrians because they are one's own people. This is a double course. Actually, from a spiritual point of view, everybody is your own people. So why make a distinction and say only these are my own people? That's again the ignorance, when you don't see the oneness of things. You are only limiting your sympathy to a particular group. And without them, life will be empty. This pity is a weakness of the mind and senses. It's not only in the mind and senses. So, in between is the vital. Naturally, that also gets trapped between the mind and the sense. Senses is physical, mind is above, and in between is the vital, and that also is a affected. In fact, the weakness is of your own, all the three, mind, vital, and body. Even the body. Some, I mention another interesting thing. When someone gets very angry, sometimes you will see that they start trembling. Okay, the body starts trembling with anger. So they are the wrong forces which actually affect you physically, vitally, mentally. Okay? So here also he is affected by this force which is coming from outside and making him very weak. Okay? Because he is weak, he is accepting this force that is coming in and he says, I won't fight. Un-Aryan, and its pity for others is also a form of self-indulgence. You are being very indulgent to yourself. You say, okay, I agree, I am weak. But you should not do that. You should be able to withstand the pressure on yourself. Okay? That requires a little bit of strength. It's not easy. It is the physical shrinking of the nerves from the act of slaughter, the egoistic, emotional shrinking of the heart from the destruction of the Dhritarashtrians because they are one's own people and without them life will be empty. This pity is a weakness of the mind and senses, a weakness which may well be beneficial to men of a lower grade of development. Now it depends. Now this is a very interesting thing. Pity is useful for those who are very insensitive and at a lower level of consciousness where they don't understand compassion. They are insensitive and even sometimes cruel. Okay? So to them, pity, although it's a defect in the higher levels of human nature, still it is very useful for those who are at a lower nature state. So you can see again the gradation of so many different types. When you are very, very weak, okay, the weakness can translate into an insensitivity. This pity is the weakness of the mind and senses. Okay, so it may be beneficial to men of a lower grade of development who have to be weak because otherwise they will be hard and cruel. For they have to cure the harsher by the gentler forms of sensational egoism. They have to call in tamas, the debile principle, to help sattva, the principle of light, in quelling the strength and excess of their rajasic passions. But this, the hard and cruel man is very often at a tamasic level. Okay? So he must be able to bring in the sattva through the rajas. That's what I'm saying. The principle of light to help sattva, the principle of light in quelling the strength and excess of their rajasic passions. But this way is not for the developed Aryan man who has to grow not by weakness but by an ascension from strength to strength. Now this is very interesting. We can have a slight discussion on this. Okay. Now, suppose someone comes and attacks you. Okay. What will be your reaction? So there can be three levels of reaction. Okay. One, you are so weak that you are stunned and you are afraid and you don't react at all. This is the worst. Okay, you sort of withdraw and look and you don't know what to do. That's the worst. But suppose you are sufficiently strong, you hit him back with anger. There is a second level. If you are at that level, it's justified. Why should you tolerate cruelty on yourself? If he gives you a slap, you give him another slap again. So this is the second level, but it is still defective. But what about the third level? You are so strong that you don't need to hit back at all. You are not affected by that slap. This is the third level. Okay? You remain calm and quiet and you don't react. You're absolutely firm and you're not at all angry or you're not at all affected. But there is a fourth level. That means to say, you hit him back when necessary, but without anger, without excitement, without being affected. So this is the gradation, you can see it. This is the discussion that is taking place here. So there are so many things you have to understand at which level one is. Now, so it's very interesting. Okay. So when a man does not react, you can see whether he is weak and not reacting, or whether he is seemingly weak but he is so strong that quiet that he does not react. And you wonder why that happens. I can tell you it's very interesting. Yeah, tell me.
Gandhiji said that you offer him your other cheek. That is the way from the third level.
And yeah, I would think so. Yeah, that's right. When you say, no, but why should you offer your cheek? That's a perversion. You don't, it is not necessary at all to offer your cheek for another slap. Not necessary at all. That is foolishness. So it is true what you are saying. That's the third level, correct. That means you are not affected and you are not afraid of further violence on yourself. That's what it means actually. But you never offer yourself. That's what also Gandhi did, okay? He said that you can beat me as much as you want. I don't mind. You put me in prison, give me punishment, but I won't be affected. You are not going to affect my soul. But this is also not a right reaction, okay? It's not necessary to offer your cheek. I'll tell you something interesting. Someone wrote to Srimdu that the path of yoga is very difficult and you can't attain the divine without difficulty. And difficulty is sometimes helpful, no? Because you learn how to conquer that difficulty. So he wrote to Srimdu saying, should I welcome the difficulties? So Srimdu said, absolutely not. The difficulties will come of themselves and you will have plenty of it. But it's not necessary to invite them. Okay? That's foolishness. Why should you invite? That's exactly like offering your other cheek. There's no need to offer your other cheek. Yes, stay calm and quiet. Isn't it? So it's very interesting, this the grade at which you can react. First grade, you don't react at all out of weakness and fear. Second grade, you are affected very badly and you get angry and you hit back. Okay. Which one is better, you think? Tell me. Certainly. The second is certainly better than the first. No? Then the third is even better than the second. The third is you are not affected at all, but you don't hit back. Okay? And the fourth, which need not always happen, and this is exactly the situation for Arjuna, you are not affected at all, but it is a divine command that you have to kill the enemy. And you do it without any excitement and without him being affected at all. That's a fourth level, and that is exactly what Arjuna is being asked to do. So it's very interesting discussion. You can think of so many different types of reactions. Each one is, the worst is at the bottom, and there are levels also in between, which is slightly better than each one, but at the highest level, you remain absolutely unaffected and you do what the divine is telling you to do. But the divine is not going to tell you all the time to hit back, because you can remain calm and quiet without hitting back. So at the level 4 and level 3, what we discussed just now, they can be together also, you can club them together. because you, even when you are not affected at all, you need not hit back. It depends on the circumstances. Okay, so there is a discussion taking place. So, so now I get back to the text. But this way is not for the developed Aryan man who has to grow not by weakness but by an ascension from strength to strength. Now, note that this phrase is very interesting. That's exactly what we discussed just now. But by an ascension from strength to strength. So, there are many levels of strength. The first one is no strength at all, weakness. The second is slightly better, there is strength. But it's a disturbed strength. You get angry and you hit back. Okay? And the third one is you don't hit back, you are not angry, and you may hit back or you may not hit back. Okay? So, obviously, Arjuna is in this lowest level. He is ready for higher knowledge, and that's why Sri Krishna gives him the higher knowledge. But he is out of weakness, of his own weakness, he is saying, I won't fight. Okay? So, tell me.
Why did he specify Aryan men, not men in general?
Oh, because in our India, the Aryan values are the highest. Okay. The word Arya is very interesting. It comes from the cultivation of the level, okay, of the ground. You plow the ground. Okay. That's the word comes from there. I think I have forgotten the root, but in Sanskrit that's what it means. So what are you doing? You are actually preparing the ground for growth and prosperity. So that's the meaning. And so you can do that exactly for your psychological state also. So the word Aryan, okay, has got great value in our Indian culture. In fact, the India was known as the Aryavarta, okay, right from Afghanistan, right down to even the Burma, what is Burma today? Oh, that was the Aryavarta. Okay, so Arya, Anaryan means most ignoble, un-Aryan. That's why he's using the word Aryan. And the word Aryan was also again completely changed in the German context. And they thought themselves to be Aryans and very, very the highest that man can be. That was the beginning of the, many don't agree with that, but it is the beginning of the Nazi theory of superiority to the rest of the world. Okay, so un-Aryan. Okay. This is not for the developed Aryan man who has to grow not by weakness but by an ascension from strength to strength. Arjuna is the divine man, the master man in the making. Okay, he is not yet a divine man, but he can become. He can become the master man in the making. He is ready for it, and as such, he has been chosen by the gods. So neither is he very. His reaction is weak, but he is not essentially weak. He is ready for a higher knowledge. He has a work given to him. He has God beside him in his chariot. He has the heavenly bow, Gandiva, in his hand. He has the champions of unrighteousness, the opponents of the divine leading of the world in his front. Not his is the right to determine what he shall do or not do according to his emotions and his passions, or to shrink from a necessary destruction by the claim of his egoistic heart or reason, or to decline his work because it will bring sorrow and emptiness to his life, or because its earthly result has no value to him in the absence of the thousands who must perish. Remember, I suddenly remembered a very interesting incident, okay, which I'll tell you. It has got, it's relevant to what we are discussing here. You know, there's a very interesting book called An Extraordinary Girl, written um, by Nerodha. And it's about a lady who was in the ashram. Her name was Esha. Okay. And there is enough evidence, if you want to believe, that she was the reincarnated soul of Mrinalini, who was Srindo's wife. Okay, Mrinalini. So, what happened was very interesting. This girl, Esha, when she was an 11-year-old, she was a niece of Dilip Kumar Roy. Dilip Kumar Roy's had a sister, and Esha was her. She is gone. She, I think, passed away in the nursing home in the 1980s or something like that, maybe a little later. And she was very close to Nirodha, and it's a very interesting book if you read. So, Esha, when she was 11-year-old, in the house, there were some people who came. Uh, Diribda was from a very well-to-do family. Huh? There are many houses and all that, which were sold afterwards, and the money was brought to the ashram by which the plots for Golconda were bought with that money. Okay. So, Esha, when she was there, and there were some guests in the house, and they were insulting mother and sister and saying that passing comments which are not okay. Okay. Now, this girl stood up, 11-year-old girl, huh? She stands up and says, if you people talk like this about my gurus, you please get out of the house. And when this was reported to Sri Aurobindo said, appreciated very much. Now, this is one incident. Okay. Now, I'll tell you also about the Shahanadi. Okay. In Mother India now we are bringing out Shahanadi's correspondence, and there is a very interesting incident about Shahanadi. Shahanadi asked Sri Aurobindo that there were some people who were making bad comments about you and mother. And in yoga, we are told to be absolutely being not affected at all. So, what should we have done? Should we have opposed them and told them that this won't do at all, or should we remain calm and quiet? Now, this is very relevant to what we are reading. Huh? So, normally you would have thought, okay, let's remain absolutely calm and quiet, not necessary to react. Just now we discussed the level 3 and level 4. There is a choice. Even when you are not affected, should you hit back or should you not hit back? Okay. So that's the third and fourth levels what we just now discussed. No? So, Sri Aurobindo said, normally it would be the right thing to remain absolutely unaffected and remain calm and quiet. But here in the ashram and the work that I and mother are doing, he didn't say I, but what is being done here is we have to bring down the higher level into the lower level. And in that fight, we have to annihilate the opposite forces. So therefore, it would have been the right thing for you to stand up and oppose them. Now, note this, it's very interesting what Sri is saying. Okay, this is exactly what Arjuna is being told by Sri Krishna. Stand up and kill the enemy. In our case, is the story that I'm telling you, you don't need to kill those who are criticizing, but you oppose them and tell them to get lost. Okay, it's necessary to fight back. So sometimes you need to fight back, sometimes you don't need to, depending on the circumstances. If they were criticizing somebody else, okay, ordinary human beings, suppose they are criticizing somebody else, your friend, yes, you remain calm and quiet without being affected and you don't react. But when they are attacking the very divine principle, they are attacking Mother and Sri Aurobindo, you have to fight back. This is exactly Arjuna's situation also. He has to fight back the enemy of the divine. Right? Just now I remembered the incident, and there's a whole letter of Shahanadi. Okay. And it was very much, I won't go into details because it's a very controversial thing in the ashram, but there was somebody who wrote a book also which is very critical of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and the reactions from our authorities were not absolutely up to the mark. Anyway, that's another story. But this is exactly what Sri Aurobindo said, that there, if it was somebody else, yes, you could have remained calm and quiet. But in this case, we are trying to bring down the divine principle and we have to fight with the enemy. Okay. At a very relevant situation, okay, now in India also, the Indians are their own enemies, the worst enemies. We are trying to get back to our culture now, and we are trying to establish our eternal Sanatana Dharma. And there is so much of opposition from within us. So these have to be fought. Okay. So it's very interesting. All right. So I go on to the next sentence. All right. Arjuna is the divine man, the master man in the making, and as such he has been chosen by the God. He has a work given to him. It's not that he has no work. He has a work. He has God beside him in the chariot. He has the heavenly bow Gandiva in his hand. He has the champions of unrighteousness, the opponents of the divine leading of the world in his front. That's exactly why he has to attack them. Okay? Not his is the right to determine what he shall do or not do according to his emotions and his passions, or to shrink from a necessary destruction by the claim of his egoistic heart and reason, or to decline his work because it will bring sorrow and emptiness to his life, or because its earthly result has no value to him in the absence of the thousands who must perish. So all these possibilities are there, all the arguments are wrong, he has to stand up and fight. All that is a weak falling of his higher nature. I have falling, but it could be also failing also. So all that is a weak falling from his higher nature. No, it must be falling because from his higher nature. He has to see only the work that must be done. Kartavyam karma. And this kartavyam karma is put in italics because it's taken from the Gita. And this is what very often it is completely misinterpreted as duty. Okay? And Sri Aurobindo has a big discussion on duty. The spiritual man has no duty. There is no duty for him. Duties are imposed on man by another man. But the divine, when he is imposing something on you, it's a kartavyam karma, it's not a duty. You have to just follow it, that's all. It's not a duty. Duty is a very relative term. Must be done. Kartavyam karma, that work which has to be done. To hear only the divine command, breathe through his warrior nature. To feel only for the world and the destiny of mankind, calling to him as its God sent man to assist its march and clear its path of the dark armies that beset it. Okay? So, we finished the para. We read it also earlier, I remember, but anyway, a little more discussion today. I hope it is clear what is being said because very often this is misunderstood. In the West, particularly, it is very badly misunderstood. How can the divine tell you to start killing? This is the interpretation they give. It depends entirely on the level that you are. Okay. All right. We read the next one. Arjuna in his reply. Who will read? One of you has to read. Anyone?
Shall I
Shall I
read?
read?
Oh yes. Go ahead.
Arjuna, in his reply to Krishna, admit, admits the rebuke even while he strives against and refuses the command. He is aware of his weakness and yet accepts subjection to it. It is poorness of spirit he owns that has smitten away from him his true heroic nature. His whole consciousness is bewildered in its view of right and wrong, and he accepts the divine friend as his teacher, but the emotional and intellectual props on which he had supported his sense of righteousness have been entirely cast down, and he cannot accept a command which seems to appeal only to his old standpoint and give him no new basis of action. His attempts still to justify his refusal of the work and puts forward in its support the calm of his nervous and sensational being, which shrinks from the slaughter, which its sequel of blood-stained enjoyments, the calm of his heart, which recoils from the sorrow and the emptiness of life that will follow his act, the claim of his customary moral notions, which are applied by the necessity of slaying his gurus. Bhishma and Drona, the claim of his reason, which sees no good, but only evil result of the terrible and violent work assigned to him. He is resolved that on the old basis of thought and motive, he will not fight and he awaits in silence the answer to objections that seems to him unanswerable. It is these claims of Arjuna's egoistic being that Krishna sets out first to destroy in order to make place for the higher law which shall transcend all egoistic motives of action.
Yeah. So this is what we will read now. We have got enough time. We have got 15 minutes, nearly 15 minutes. So we'll go through quickly. Arjuna, in his reply to Krishna, admits the rebuke, even while he strives against and refuses the command. So he gives many reasons for not fighting. He says that it is a crime to kill. Not only that, if I do that, the family values will be destroyed, and the whole social structure of our uh, Indian civilization will break down. There will be molestation of women. He mentioned that, and there will be uh, Varna Sankara. There will be mixture of all sorts of the four castes. There will be a mixture, and that will lead to destruction of the society itself. All sorts of arguments he gives. But this is, and yet he admits, he says somewhere he knows that what he is doing is not absolutely correct. So he says, you help me please. Okay, he says that. Arjuna, in his reply to Krishna, admits, he knows the rebuke, admits the rebuke. And what was the rebuke? Don't be an-Aryan. From where has this depression and what this weakness has entered into your heart? Stand up and fight. That was the rebuke, the scolding that he got from Krishna. He is aware of his weakness, there you are, and yet accepts the subjection to it. That's what often happens to us also. We know that what we are doing is wrong, and yet we cannot help it and we do it. The mind is telling you that you are not doing what is right, and yet the vital insists on doing it. Okay? Very common human nature. It is poorness of spirit. He owns. Okay, he owns means he admits. The word own here means he admits. He owns up. I own up my own mistake, or I own up my own failure. Okay, to own up. That's what it means. It's not the normal meaning of own. Huh? So then he says, his poorness of spirit he owns that has smitten him away from his true heroic nature. His whole consciousness is bewildered in its view of right and wrong, and he accepts the divine friend as his teacher. But the emotional and intellectual props on which he has supported his sense of righteousness at the moral level, okay, his sense of righteousness has been entirely cast down, and he cannot accept a command which seems to appeal only to his old standpoint. His old standpoint is a moral standpoint and not the spiritual standpoint. It is wrong to kill, it is wrong to tell a lie, it is wrong to do all this type of thing. Okay, these are all moral ideas, but there can be circumstances when what you think is morally wrong can be quite right also. It's very simple. When you have to kill, you have to kill sometimes without being affected. Yes, that is necessary. Then sometimes it may even be necessary to tell a lie. Okay? Of course, there are very grades. Okay, so there are so many different things. So, if you remember the story of Les Miserables, he steals Jean Valjean. Okay, so there are all sorts of discussions there about that. Which is right action, which is wrong action. So his old standpoint he is still sticking to, and gives him no new basis for action. He attempts still to justify his refusal of the work and puts forward in support the claim, the word is claim, of his nervous and sensational being, which shrinks from the slaughter with its sequel of blood-stained enjoyments. If he kills all his enemies, he will get the kingdom, and then he will enjoy the kingdom, but it will be blood-stained. So, the claim of his heart, which recoils from the sorrow and emptiness of life that will follow his act. The claim of his customary moral notions, which are, okay, the customary moral notions. All his ideas are moral. That means at the mental level, not spiritual, which are appalled by the necessity of slaying his gurus. On the other side, there is Bhishma, his own great-grandfather, Pitamaha. And there is Drona, who was the guru of his for his archery. Okay, the claim of his reason which sees no good but only evil results of the terrible and violent work assigned to him. The divine work is not always a very gentle and calm and sweet work. Okay, sometimes they can give you work which can disturb you because you are weak. I remember one very interesting thing. There was um, a young boy who had just passed his medical, he passed his MBBS. He was from well-to-do family. His name was Rajangam, okay, in the ashram. He used to live in the ashram. Okay. And he passed out and immediately wanted to come to the ashram. And Srivando, when he saw his application, he said, yoke him, bring him here immediately. So, and this Pakka South Indian Brahmin was given the work of going to the market and buying fish for the cats. Somebody else would have said, how unkind of mother to do that. He is a Brahmin, he can't even touch non-vegetarian things. And mother is asking him to go and do that. Okay. So this is you are being taught to go from one level to another level. And he did that very happily. Not only he used to go and buy the fish, but he used to also boil them for the cats. Okay. You have to destroy your old standards and get to the new. That's what Srivanda is saying here. Look at this phrase. Seems to appeal only to his old standpoint and gives him no new basis for action. I think all of you know that also what Srivanda did to Amritada. Okay. Amritada was absolutely a Pakka Brahmin with even a tuft of hair on a tikki he had. Okay. But he was a young boy when he came to know Srivanda, 16-year-old boy. And one day, Srivanda told Nolida to cut off his tikki. Shikha. Okay. They have the Brahmins, you know that, no? They shave their head and there is that at the back of the head, there is a tuft of hair. So Srivanda ordered him to be cut off. And what's Srivanda doing? He is taking from a lower level to a higher level. Get rid of all these attachments and conventions. That's what Srivanda is saying. Okay. So he was very disturbed for a long time. Okay. My God, how will I face my family? What will they tell me? How can I face my family? But finally, Aravamudu Iyengar, that was his name. He got the name Amrita and he became the managing trustee of the Srivanda Ashram Trust. For a long time, he was the trustee. I think many of you have seen him, no? Pallu, you have seen him?
Yes, Ranganath.
Ah, you have seen him. He's a wonderful man. Okay, so this is what going from one level to another level. Okay, so that's exactly what so terrible work assigned to him. He is resolved that on the old basis of thought and motive, there you are again, okay, the gradation from the old to the new. The old is the moral standard and the new will be the spiritual standard. He is resolved that on the old basis of thought and motive, he will not fight and he awaits in silence the answer to objections that seem to him unanswerable. It is these claims of Arjuna's egoistic being that Krishna sets out first to destroy in order to make place for the higher law which shall transcend all egoistic motives of action. So that's exactly what Srivanda did also with Amritada. Get rid of your old standards and be ready for the new. That's the whole process of destroying your old and going to the new. That's why, I mean, even in the physical level, it is like that. Huh? When you have an old house which your great-grandparents have built and it is now crumbling, you have to build a new house. You destroy it, you pull the house down and build a new one. That's exactly the process also in yoga. All your old standards, and don't think it's only in the mind and the vital. Even the body gets changed. Okay? So this is exactly what Sri Krishna is doing with Arjuna. He is destroying his old standards and that's why he scolds him and tells him what is his weakness. Get rid of your weakness. Destroy the old standard and come to the new standard. Okay? So 8:32. So we got 3 minutes only. And if the next paragraph is sufficiently small, it's quite big. So I think we can stop here today. Uh, Sunki, will you note down the?
Yes, I will make a note. Ranganath.
We have to read. We have to read the answer of the teacher. Okay. So let's
Okay,
do.
yes.
So we stop here today. So, it is so subtle, na? There are so many different things you have to consider, and then you have to see. There is no one single standard of action for everybody. It depends at which level you are. If you're a weak person or if you're a strong person, there are also different standards. That's why Mother and Sister used to give different instructions to different people. Okay? To some people, when they say, "Sir, we feel like remaining only at home and not mixing with others," sometimes you would approve, and sometimes you say, "No, the tendency for you is too much separated from others. It's not good. You have to mix with others so that you know how to deal with the problems of life. You should mix." So these are all the things. Depends on the individual level at which you are. That's the word. So we stop here today. Au revoir, everybody. Have a
Thank you.
nice day.
Thank you, Ranganath.
And